What's up, guys? I'm Crystal Lee Naomi, aka Jasmine Borders on Tyler Perry's Sistas. Be sure to subscribe to the Haves and the Have-Nots review for not only reviews on the Haves and the Have-Nots, but also on Sistas. And while you're at it, give your girl a follow on Instagram at Crystal Lee Naomi. And I'll see you every Wednesday at 9, only on BET.
All right, Sistas fans, here we are with the episode review for Season 2, Episode 11, entitled The Hot Stove. I gotta say that I think this is one of the more problematic episodes of the series so far. And like always, I always say that at the moment, my Facebook group for Sisters is the most interactive or active group right now. Like if you go to that group and you post something, you're most likely guaranteed to get a bunch of likes and comments because the fans talk about the show every day of the week. There are so many. Thankfully, I just added a backup administrator. That way, when you post stuff, they can approve it. That way, you don't have to wait for it super long. But I've been seeing a lot of negative things about the episode. Of course, mainly Andi. I got to say, this episode itself, I think what really did it in for me in regards to, I wasn't like angry or super upset watching the episode. But yet again, we have another prime example of, and I mentioned this about last week's episode of The Haves and Have-Nots, people not really saying what they need to say as opposed to kind of just pushing people away instead of being upfront and honest. And it's not like it hasn't happened in this series before. So let me just go into my thoughts about the episode. But of course, do the following, please. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up button to show you like the video. Hit the subscribe button. Click the bell notification icon and select all. That way you're notified whenever I post new content to the channel. And follow me on my various social media sites. Links are in the description below. The hot stove. All right, so this is where the episode kind of lost me because we pick up where we left off. You know, Gary is in Andi's apartment. And guys, turns out I asked a question a couple weeks ago about, wait, why is Gary at the apartment? It's like, didn't Andi make him give back the key? Or not Andi, but like Danni, Sabrina, and Carden? Yes, but it turns out that Gary has made several copies of the key. And Andi makes it clear that she wants him out of there, but he is still confronting her about the whole situation. Who was it that you were with? Who's that guy? Who's that guy? And she kept saying, please leave, but he wouldn't do it. And says, hey, look, the money's in a safety deposit box. I'll give you that $250,000 tomorrow. Just leave right now and leave me alone. And it's almost like instead of sticking to her guns, Andi kind of falters because Gary begins to say like, you know, hey, are you ending this? Are you leaving me? It's like, no, I'm not ending this, but I just need time to process this. You need to go. But then, you know, the phone goes off. I think that's pretty much a text message or I think it's a text from Paris probably saying that he's up there. But, you know, that's when Gary goes back into jealous rage mode where he's like, okay, I'm sorry. We're not going to do that again. It's like, so who's that? Oh, nobody. Give me the phone. Open the phone, Andi. And he pretty much snatches the phone. And when she's trying to grab it back, he kind of reels back like he's about to hit her. And then we get to the theme song. Thankfully, Paris shows up and wants to know what's going on. And next thing you know, when Andi's like, look, I want him to stay and you to leave, Gary, that's when a fight breaks out. And then we get this weird cut where we go over to Fatima's place. She arrives, Zach isn't there. She gives him a call and he says he's just going to go ahead and work through the night and they'll talk tomorrow. Then they go back to the apartment where the fight kind of stops and Gary's still not leaving. And, you know, Andi's trying to get between the two to stop him. She's like, hey, the police are coming. It's like, you need to leave. Like, I don't care about the police. I want my money back. Look, I ain't leaving. And then that's when Paris kind of, you know, pushed him out of the door and closes it. And that's the end of that. What? So then we make another cut. This time we go over to Karen, who just gets back from the girls' night, and Aaron's on the couch sleeping, but he wakes up. They lay on the couch together, and he pretty much talks about, I wonder if love is knocking at the door. And basically, they agree to just take things slow because he asked about, so what about your ex, or what about your in-laws? Like, okay, fair point. So basically, they're just going to take things slow and enjoy the ride. Basically, see where this goes between the two, and looks like things are getting kind of stable, and that's pretty much good. So then we make another jump over to Andi, who Paris's knuckles, man, shoot, must have been some hard punches, because his fist looked like or his knuckles looked like, he was just crushing grapes or something, because they were purple. But basically, Andy's holding like ice packs to his hands, and Paris just asked a simple question like, why in the world are you with a guy like that? Andi doesn't want to answer. It's like, look, Andi, it's like, I came over because you called. I got into a fight for you. I think you can at least tell me what's going on. But let's put it this way. She bluntly states, you know what, I'm tired. I had a little too much drink. I want you to go home. Like, what the fuck? So he kissed her on the cheek, and I want to be honest here. If I were him, that would have been it. Like, for real. What the hell? What the hell? I don't even know what to say that hasn't already been said online, because I know people have been ranting and raving. I don't really have anything to add. I mean, I feel like we've been doing the same thing with Andi every single week, just like with Sabrina, and I'll get to that when we get over to Maurice. But this is why I don't feel anything for Andi in regards to feeling bad for her, because this is just a textbook reason of why these women who complain, say men ain't shit and all, don't have good men, because you push away the good men to be with these roughnecks who put hands on you. So I hope and pray that Paris is gone from the show, only because I don't want to be caught up in this nonsense again at all. It's just ridiculous. I wonder what Miss Irene going to say now. If there's any character I want to come back, Miss Irene. Imagine, Andy's in her new office in Bellamy's office, but then Miss Irene comes in to clean, and then, oh Lord, I hope that happens. That's what I want. You know what, Paris? I don't want him to show up anymore, because I don't want him caught up in this foolishness. But I hope Miss Irene give her a mouthful. Like, I'm not saying that Paris, it was Andy's fault completely, because Paris didn't have to come over there. But at the same time, it's like, he knew what she was calling him over for late at night to get a glass of wine. He knew what it was. But then I get into a fight over you, and now I'm getting kicked to the curb. Yeah, I hope Paris just leaves her ass alone. This is just, I don't feel bad for her. I don't feel bad for her. So, Danni gets home, and she wants to get all, fluffy handcuffs with Preston. And I feel like Danni, she's going to mess this up, because he's like, look, I got a long day tomorrow. I'm sleeping on the couch. I'm comfortable. I don't want to, I don't feel like having sex right now. Not to mention, we ain't doing them handcuffs, because last time we did, look, I know that's a poor Preston impersonation, but I can't really do one. Last time we did that, you're really mad. I ain't doing that again. And once again, it's like she's feeling frisky, but he's being open and honest. So basically, it's like he rightfully, and I feel like this episode just had a lot more repetition than ever, and that's what made it feel like it was dragging on. And yes, I was watching the episode at double speed, meaning that I finished the episode in about 20 minutes, yet it still felt like it was dragging. So, okay. But basically, it's like, hey, I won't call you, GAL, but you don't call me the white boy, don't call me Rodeo. Like, I ain't gonna let go of Rodeo. I ain't gonna lie, Rodeo got a nice, yeah, it got a nice sound too. I think, Preston should compromise and at least keep Rodeo. That's a catchy name. But basically, long story short, they end up going to bed together. It's like, Preston tries to be open and honest, basically because he's literally trying to learn, because the last time they engaged in sexual activity, he said the wrong thing. She got pissed, and then, next thing looking ass and whatnot. So he's literally trying to read the terms and conditions before signing the paperwork. But, Danni just wants to have sex now and deal with consequences later. So they go off to bed. So we go over to Maurice's place, and Sabrina turns up drunk, and thank God she took a cab. See, I'm glad when they mention little things like that. I know there have been plenty of times in Tyler Perry shows, like towards the ending of season 5, before Alex got into her cowgirl outfits and whatnot. Oh yeah, the morning after her and Ian slept together, and she had all that stuff to drink, and then she was drinking the next morning, and she was driving all around town like, what the hell is this? How is she still driving? But yeah, I'm glad that it was just a little thing they mentioned that Sabrina took a cab and didn't drive because, long story short, she's upset about seeing Calvin with another woman, and Maurice is just telling her like it is, like, raise your hand if you're tired. It's this same shit between Calvin and Sabrina, and I'm like, Maurice speaking for the audience. So basically he's dropping truth bombs. I mean, she is tipsy, so it's not like what he says really sticks, but he's like, look, you need to make a choice because he wants to commit. You say you don't want to commit because you don't feel like he's the right one, but he can't make you do anything, but you need to make a choice now in order to save yourself. Basically what Sabrina was saying in the last episode is like, I don't want to waste his time, and more importantly, I don't want to waste my time. So yeah, because you didn't tell him that you want to commit, of course he's not going to waste his time and try to move on to the next one. But you know, as Sabrina's like, you know, Maurice is trying to get her up out of there. Look, we're besties from 9 to 5 at work, but on off hours, you ain't going to roll up in here when I'm trying to get some beauty rest. But she's like, no, I'll stay on the couch. I don't want to go home. Like, she takes off her shoes. Like, will you hold me? Because that's a running thing in this episode. Will you hold me? Like, hell no. It's like, will you rub my feet? I'm like, look, I've been told I am good with foot rubs. So, ladies, I am not against that. But Maurice wasn't down. Get your ugly ass feet. I'm like, her feet look nice. At least they didn't look like what's her name's from Boomerang. But in any case, you know, Maurice is like trying to get Sabrina to just back off, and then Sabrina looks down and notices the ice and whatnot and blood on the table, and of course this is Maurice kind of recovering from the Alonzo brawl, and he pulls up the bank cameras in order to show the beatdown because Sabrina's like, no, the last time he was waiting for you, you ended up in the hospital. No, I kicked his ass this time. And look, there are just so many quotables from Maurice in this episode. I don't even feel like doing it because, again, in the Facebook group, it's all there. But basically, she's like, wait. He's been there for an hour. What if he's dead? Self-defense, had a restraining order. So they go to the bank to see if he's alive. I just love how Sabrina's like trying to get herself to get her shoes on. Where's my earring? Yeah. So they go down to the bank. But we go over to Calvin. He's with a girl named, is it Janet or Jenna? Janet or Jenna? I think it's Jenna. Basically, you know, they're trying to have sex, but he can't get it up because she knows that he's thinking about one of the girls at the table. Oh, Sabrina, she loves you. I can tell. I saw it in her eyes. Basically, she tells him, it's like, look, she might be scared because, yeah, you're a bit flamboyant. I mean, she thought you were gay, but yeah, you're kind of a little suspect, but as long as you showed her who you really are, then, you know, it shouldn't really matter. And I did like the metaphor, which was a reference to the title of the episode, The Hot Stove. Is like, you know, once people, I mean, it's not you that has the problem, it's clearly her because you know what your intentions are with her, but she's uncertain about it. Basically, people who have had their heart broken before, you know, it's like touching a hot stove. Once you do it, it hurts and you don't want to do it again. I'm like, that's me. That's honestly me. It's like relationships or whatnot. Nah, I'm good. It's like, you get burned one time, you don't want to go back. But then from there, she's like, why don't you just go over there right now, tell her how you feel, like, hey, I'm sorry, but we can just take it slow, we can be ready to commit when you're ready to commit. But he's like, nah, I want you to hold me. I think that's adorable because Sabrina obviously said the same thing to Maurice, and it's like, oh, fine, but we're going to spoon, not cradle. So then we go over to Andi, who wakes up in the middle of the night, and Gary's sitting in there drinking because he apparently feels like he'll come over whenever he wants to. And she's like, I'll change locks. And it's like, eh. But basically, it's just this. I was cringing this entire scene because once again, he's trying to figure out what's going on. I don't know who's more paranoid, Gary or Veronica. Arguably Veronica from the Haves and Have-Nots, but Gary's probably up. Those two will have a good time together because they both paranoid as hell. It's like, you're working with Jasmine, aren't you? You're working with what's his name? Morris. You're working with them. He's basically suspecting Andi of everything, and like he's trying to go to the bed. He's like, look, we just sit on the couch. You'll be okay. You need to just lay down. You're out of it. And I'm like, wow, you'll let this dude stay, but then you'll send Paris home. What the hell? Like, I wonder what would have happened if Paris was still there. Well, no, it's a good, you know what? Never mind, Andi. Thanks for sending Paris away because Gary was going to pop up anyway. Because as soon as she came out of the room, is he back there? He's like, turns out she ain't even called the police. Like, what the hell? You're asking for this. And again, I'm not wishing domestic violence on anyone, but then she goes say, I love you. What the So then this fool I love you. Basically, he kind of squeezed her, crushed her until we don't know what happens. Even though if you watch the preview for next week, then you know what happens because they ruined the freaking climax of the episode. It's just stupid. Gary, I can't breathe. Gary, I can't. Look, Andi ain't dying. It's the mid-season finale. All right, so Fatima goes over to the house Zach is working on, and I think he's like sleeping on the floor, but he wakes up. And this is just another example of a character not saying what they need to say because instead of bringing up the whole Hayden situation, Zach pretty much flips the script on her. He's acting immature again instead of saying what's going on. It's like, look, I want to make things work. I don't want this program to fall apart. Okay, you're making sense, Zach. Now let's talk about why you feel that way. You just skip over the hating part. You just switch it up. Now basically he's no longer staying at Fatima's place and she walks out on him. That's honestly, I was just like so frustrated at this scene. You know, want to know another scene that frustrated me? I don't think a lot. I feel like I say this every week. I feel like every time a sister episode is over, a handful of people walk away from that episode looking worse than how they came into it. Like last week, cheering for Maurice. This week, I'm like, come on, man. So Sabrina and Maurice arrive at the bank. Sabrina gets out of the car, and Alonzo's still laying there. I ain't gonna lie, the way his arms position, it look like he's asleep. I mean, technically he is, but I ain't gonna lie, I was kind of laughing. Maurice said, Sabrina, kick him again. And then it's unclear as to whether or not he's alive, but Sabrina gets the phone to call not the ambulance and whatnot. And Maurice, okay, yeah, this was not a good look at all. Tosses her purse out of the window and drives off, leaving her. Wow, Maurice. Wow. All right, so then Gary is calling Aaron. Karen and Aaron are in bed together, and the phone goes off. Karen hears it. Turns out that Aaron is like Gary's spiritual mentor or whatever, and he doesn't want to hear about God or anything. Was it last week where his lawyer was trying to calm his ass down, but this time he's drunk and driving? He's like, look, I did something bad. I went over to the house and, and then, Aaron's trying to put two and two together, and he says Gary, and then it's like, wait, Andi? And then Karen hears these names, and it's like, Gary Borders? Like, yeah, Gary, how you know him? It's like, and then she calls Andi because she knows something's up. Andi isn't answering the phone, and it's just weird because it looks like Gary's going to crash into something, but even if he does, the preview ruined the suspense. Who the hell edited the trailer for next week? It's stupid. But basically, he's going on. It's like, look, I was trying to be a good person. Why is this happening to me? Yeah, I know I was married and I was trying to end it. It's like, man, just shut up. This episode, just like Assisted Living, it ended with the little PSA at the end. It's like, if you know someone who's dealing with domestic violence, and it's like, wow, another PSA. I honestly don't know what to say about this episode. This was not it. I don't even know what to say. I feel like one of the worst things is at the beginning, like when you got the fight between Paris and Gary, but they keep switching to other scenes. It just messed up the pacing. It's like Paris comes over and hang on, let me look at the notes again. Yeah, Paris shows up and a fight breaks out. But let's see what Fatima's doing. She's calling Zach because he's not at home. The fight intensifies, but then it stops. And as they're yelling at Gary to leave before the police come, he leaves. Karen comes home and sees Aaron on the couch. Now Andi's icing Paris's knuckles and sends him home. Yeah, this episode. Okay, let me talk about the things I did like. I did like when Calvin was talking with Jenna. I believe her name, Jenna or Janet. I did like Preston once again reiterating, well, I like Preston. He's a cool character, but I just feel like it's annoying how Danni is not listening to a man who's actually being honest about the way he feels. So when he does unfortunately screw up, it's because she wasn't listening to him. And basically whenever Preston messes up, oh, he's in the wrong. But whenever she messes up, oh, we ain't got to talk about that. The Fatima and Zach thing, nothing against Fatima. It's just the whole Zach just once again immature. I didn't mind the Karen and Aaron scene. Andi was just awful. Maurice did not come out of this episode looking good compared to last week. Like, it started off good when he was giving sound advice to Sabrina, but then the way he just left her like that. I'm sorry, guys. I know I'm probably going to get flack. What was it? Was it last week or the week before last where I gave the episode a low score and people got on me about it? I want to give this episode a 3 out of 10. It really wasn't that good. It just felt like, I don't know. Andi's probably the worst girl in the group. I mean, remember last season when it was great because her story felt like the only one worth following? But now it's just Andi. I don't want to. I know some people in on Twitter and the Facebook group are like, how is Andi such a badass when it comes to dealing with all these other men and clients at the law firm, but when it comes to Gary, she's all meek and everything? I kind of get it. I mean, not only because Gary is probably reminding her of that domestic violence situation from college, but here's the thing. Let's say, for example, let's use the Jacksons for an example. I think that's a good example because we know Joe Jackson was not the ideal father figure. Let's say, you're Jackie Jackson. Let's just say you're Jack. I'm just using him as an example because I think he was like probably one of, if not the tallest or oldest of the brothers. And you imagine when you get to a certain age, you become, stronger than your father. But because of all like the mental and emotional, psychological abuse you endured for years, you can stand up to a lot of people, but your father, you can't do that. Even when you can like beat him to a pulp, it's that mental, emotional thing that makes you a child. It's like you mentally regress to that little boy who was beaten down when you were a kid. And that's real. So with Andi, it's almost the same thing with Gary. It's like, it's familiar territory. It's not necessarily a safe territory. It's not necessarily a non-toxic territory. But at the same time, it's like there's a lot going on in the Andi Gary situation that's clearly not right. And then the fact that you pushed away Paris in order to keep Gary. You know what? I'm trying to justify Andi's behavior, but I honestly feel like I feel like I'm lying to myself trying to make sense of this. So this episode gets a 3 out of 10 for me. It did have its good parts. I think in terms of who came out of this episode looking good, definitely Karen and Aaron. I didn't mind them. I know some people are giving Aaron flags. Like, how many people have the name Andi? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird because Aaron is Gary's spiritual advisor. Excuse me, our spiritual mentor. And then you got Paris, who is Aaron's bowling buddy. So I wonder how that dynamic is going to work out. But that's all I got to say for this particular episode of The Hot Stove. Let me know what you think. Was my score of a 3 out of 10 too low? Do you feel like it was lower than a 3? Do you feel like it was higher than a 3? Definitely not a good semi-penultimate episode. I say semi-penultimate because next week is the mid-season finale, not the season finale. But yeah, that's all I got to say. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Subscribe and like the video. Shout out to the patrons over on Patreon. You can donate for as little as $1 a month or hit me up on PayPal or Cash App. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.